While we follow on in our journey exploring the evolution of Irish music in different places around the world, we find that the melodies, the songs, and the play styles are all influenced by the people. When we compare the likes of the United States with Newfoundland, you find some differences, primarily in that, for a time in Newfoundland, the culture, the music and accent was more preserved. You could have even called it the 33rd county of Ireland. I think it's okay to still call it the 33rd county. But let's go a little further west, to the 34th county of Ireland. New Brunswick. Okay, I'm going to stop that. I'm really sorry, Canada. Kind of. But New Brunswick is situated about 400 kilometres west of Newfoundland, or 250 miles for anybody who enjoys making your life harder for yourself. It's an absolutely beautiful part of the country. Honestly, just look at these photos. Now, I was trying to stick one bad photo in here for a joke, but I actually couldn't find one despite looking for 5 minutes. They're all just lovely photos, honestly. But we're going to focus on one particular area within here, the Miramichi. But anyway, how did Irish people end up here? There were 3 waves that stand out. After 1815, when the Napoleonic Wars ended, there was an agriculture crash in Ireland, as a lot of the food was being sent over to Britain to fuel the British Army during the war. When peace was made, demand for many things just stopped overnight, and landlords started clearing tenants out. But as well as that, there were Irish soldiers fighting in the British Army who were basically just sent home. Many of these people went over to the Miramichi for work, primarily cutting timber in the vast forests in the area. But I read that the fare was very cheap now. Instead of filling the hull with a load of rocks, they filled it with Irish lads instead. So that was the first wave. The second wave was around the 1830s. This was, from what I read, a knock-on effect of the previous wave. Remember those lads in the hull of a ship? These lads, fair dues to them now, sure look. They made enough money to start buying land now, so they did. And now they could bring their families over to them. This even led to some interesting and familiar place names in New Brunswick, like New Ireland, Ballyshannon, which I believe is an abandoned settlement, and, oh, hang on a sec, just let me fix that one there. There we go. Much better. Messing aside for a second, this for me was really interesting because this is quite similar to the movement that populated Newfoundland. Instead of fish, it was wood. Oh, and Argentina as well, which instead of sheep, it was wood. So you had Irish fishermen in Newfoundland, Irish shepherds in Argentina, and Irish lumberjacks and shipbuilders in New Brunswick. But just a disclaimer for the rest of the video, it's not just Irish. It's a little bit more complex than that. It's Scottish, Acadian, and even the Indigenous Wabanaki people, specifically the Mi'kmaq. But that makes it just so much more interesting, honestly. But the third wave now, I bet you'll never guess what the third one was. Ah, Jesus, now here, I'm not sure. Now, I know my viewers do be ripping me a new one when I don't say genocide, so maybe it's that one. Ah, look, I'm gonna just follow my gut, and I'm gonna go with lack of spuds. That's B, lack of spuds. Okay, now are you sure? Are you sure that's your final answer? Yes, final answer, final answer. Okay, let's see what the correct answer is. No, it's not B, it's all of them. Ah, But yes, to be expected of the huge numbers emigrating from Ireland to escape death, around 30,000 desperate souls ended up flooding into New Brunswick during the famine years, with thousands passing through the quarantine station on Partridge Island in St. John. Thousands of Irish people died of typhus right there within the site of the city. This time the wave was fueled by pure desperation rather than the hope of finding steady work and owning a bit of land. But now that we have an idea of how people ended up here, let's start exploring the songs. We do need to stay close to that image to understand what people were doing. As we know, folk songs are of the people, and so it does help. Well, it helps me anyway. So one type of song stands out in Maritime Canada, especially in the Miramichi. There's this Come All Ye tradition, or format.
Come all you true born chanty boys, wherever ye may be. Come set ye on the deacon seat and listen unto me.
There's a direct transplant of old broadsides, be it Scottish, Irish, or English. Try and imagine it like the opening of the song is to call you in and to get you to listen. It's like an invitation, and it worked really well in the logging camps. You will hear the familiar openings like Come All Ye True-Born Irishmen, or where the song opens with like, my name is so-and-so, or a call to action setting the scene where the narrator is telling something important. One that stands out to me is McAlpine's Fusiliers with Ronnie Drew's spoken word intro. Come all you Pincher laddies and you long distant men, don't ever work for McAlpine, for Wimpy or John Lang. You do find them everywhere, but these come all ye's ruled in the Miramichi. The lumber camp entertainment was a solo, unaccompanied singing tradition. As folklorist Edward D. Ives documented, men sat on the deacon seat, which was a wooden bench at the foot of the bunks, and one man sang while the whole room stayed silent. You needed that big come all ye intro to clear your throat, demand silence from a room of 50 tired men, and set the stage. But let's look at the song My Name is Peter Emberley, which is an excellent example at just how dangerous this work was for people back then. Canadian, Irish, Scottish, English, wherever. It wasn't just swinging an axe at a tree and hoping for the best. This song was written by John Calhoun in 1881. He was a local farmer and a friend of the deceased. Abraham Munn set the lyrics to a traditional tune, but as we mentioned, the song utilises the classic come all ye format, with the song opening with My Name is Peter Emberley, as you might understand. But this song chronicles the documented true story of a young man who the song says was born in 1863 in Alberton in Prince Edward Island, just off the coast of New Brunswick in Nova Scotia. However, apparently he was born in Newfoundland. When Peter was 6 years old, his father died and the family relocated to Prince Edward Island, where the mother remarried. There are 2 separate archives online that state different things, interestingly, so I can't be 100% sure. Maybe you might know more, and if you do, please do tell us down in the comments. But anyway, fast forward a few years after his father's death and a deteriorating relationship with his stepfather, Peter left his home as a teenager in 1880 to work in the Miramichi. He was hired by a Dave McClellan and had initially delivered horses to Boys Town and worked at English Brook before moving to a lumber yard at Parker's Ridge. It was here during the winter months, loading logs onto a sled, where he was fatally crushed by a rolling log. He died shortly after and was buried in a Catholic cemetery near Boys Town. I'll read out the opening lyrics for you here, okay? And the key word is read. Just hold on to that one, because if I start singing, this video will probably be banned faster than copyright can catch it. It'll save you all the pain as well. If you want to go and hear a beautiful Irish man singing, go and listen to Garen Noon. Not me. My name is Peter Emberley, as you might understand. I was born in Prince Edward Island, down by the ocean strand. In 1880, when the flowers were in bloom, I left my native country, my fortune to pursue. I landed in New Brunswick, that lumbering country. I hired to work in the lumber woods down by the Miramichi. I hired to work in the lumber woods to cut the tall spruce down, while loading reams of yarded logs, I received my fateful crown. And I think we know what this fateful crown is. He didn't get paid. He was obviously crushed, as we said, by that rolling log. So it's a really beautiful play on words, but a very tragic incident. As we know, it's all a true story. And it just goes to show as well the hidden dangers there that a lot of the younger people might not have been aware of. Now, I had listened to the Wakami Whalers singing that version as well, and it was wonderful. Brilliantly done. So I'm going to drop a link in the description down there for you to go and listen to it directly. But the ballad operates as a highly formulaic and deeply emotional deathbed confession. Much of the song is dedicated to saying goodbye to his mother, to his homeland and his youth. The song resonated deeply with the broader community there, amplifying their perpetual anxieties of the ever-present threat of workplace mortality. It spread rapidly from the Miramichi into the lumber camps of Maine, Quebec and Ontario, and basically mashed up traditional tunes with the harsh truth of working in the woods, acting as a warning to others and a way for everyone to grieve together. There were 8 verses originally written by John Calhoun, but a 9th one was added when it made its way around the primarily Catholic Irish lumber camps. Some of the very individuals who were singing it, they basically felt the song demanded a religious send-off, and this is the verse here. Now there is just one more thing that in this world I crave. It's that some holy father will come and bless my grave. Nearby the city of Boys Town my mouldering bones do lay, awaiting for the Saviour's coming on the resurrection day. And Bob Dylan is well here. He was inspired to write his own, The Ballad of Donald White, after hearing somebody sing Peter Emberley. I'm not sure who it was, I couldn't exactly find it, but maybe you could let me know down in the comments. He also used the same melody for another one of his songs, I Pity the Poor Immigrant. So He really did like that tune. If you want to fall down a massive folk music rabbit hole, the melody used for Peter Emberley actually tracks back to an ancient Scottish street song called Come All Ye Tramps and Hawkers. So you have a global superstar like Bob Dylan borrowing a Miramichi ballad that was adapted from a Scottish travelling song, which was being sung by a mystery folk singer. That's folk music in a nutshell. Now, if you want something a bit different from the sad story of Peter Emberley, you have to look at the satirical stuff from Lawrence or Larry Gorman. He was born around 1846 in Prince Edward Island to Irish parents. Okay, I know this is about music from the Miramichi, but I actually just got to double check this to make sure, is it a separate province or what? Because I didn't really pay attention in my Canadian geography class. Let me just have a little check here. Let's see, they are different provinces, yeah. And apparently Prince Edward Island is famous for potatoes. God, there's some good looking spuds now. Hey, I won't lie. Anyway, Lawrence or Larry Gorman was born in 1846 in the best province in Canada. Sorry, that's just my potato bias talking there. You know, it's just etched into my DNA. But his father was from Kilkenny and his mother had settled in the Miramichi. His mother arrived later and I believe his father was a prominent figure in Prince Edward Island. But Larry had spent his winters working in the Miramichi lumber camp before he eventually headed down to Maine. He became a legend in the woods, known as the man who made the songs. He wrote over 80 ballads using those old Irish tunes and meters to take the piss out of everything from stingy bosses to the poor naive lads who didn't know what they were getting into. Larry wasn't one for making the woods sound like a lovely place to be. In his song Boys of the Island, he basically tells the young lads to stay away, saying a lumberman's life is of short duration, made up of tobacco, hard work, and bad rum. Doesn't sound too bad, honestly. It's a great laugh because, as well, he mocks the greenhorns arriving from Prince Edward Island in their nice, clean clothes, only to have the veteran woodsman tear them a new one, while the forest took care of the rest of their dignity. Then you have the Scow and Cowden Shore, which is just brilliant. It's all about the wild parties after the spring drive, but a scow was a big, flat-bottomed workboat. And in some cases as well, they'd build a wooden shack right on top of it to act as like in this case, a floating kitchen, like in this image here. Cowden's Shore was this bit of farmland on the Miramichi where the lads would wait for the logs to be sorted. They'd be eaten from the cook's scow and getting absolutely hammered on illicit whiskey, leading to all sorts of fights and madness. Sounds like a perfectly normal Tuesday night to me. Larry opens the song with that classic come all ye style, basically warning everyone that he's about to start roasting them. I'll read a few lines out for you now. My name is Larry Gorman, to all hands I mean no harm. You need not be alarmed, for you've heard of me before. I can make a song and sing it, I can fix it neat and bring it, and the title that I'll give it is The Scow on Cowden Shore. I have many a foe, and the same I do know so. Amongst them all I go, and it grieves their hearts full sore. For I know that they could shoot me, criminate and prosecute me, but they kindly salute me round the Scow on Cowden Shore. So the one here I listened to was Alan Mell's rendition of it. And Alan himself, being born to Jewish parents, does a great job of imitating the original author of the song, Larry Gorman. What I find absolutely hilarious is that his music actually kept people in check. Everyone was terrified of being the subject of one of Larry's songs. There was actually a time when Larry got so bitter about a local boss who he claimed had cheated him out of his wages that he wrote a track called The Gold Decoy. This was when he was in Prince Edward Island. He didn't just attack the boss either. He went after the man's entire family, dragging his brother into it and singing about the private family drama for the whole world to hear. The song caused a massive amount of absolute outrage and bad blood in the community. It got to the point where it was simply too hot for Larry to even stay on the island, so he packed his bags and fled across the water to the Miramichi, just to escape the heat of his own pen. He basically used the song tradition to dish out a bit of justice and public shaming in a place where there were no laws or protections for the workers even. He was a dangerous man with a pen, so he was. Maybe he's a distant relative of the Beaton family. You never know. Joking aside, anyway, people were just terrified of being slagged, and it's kind of no different than today. Even I'm getting a little bit anxious about the next few words coming up. I'm not even going to be able to pronounce them, but I'll give it my best shot. But it really started with the Mi'kmaq, who were part of the Wabanaki Confederacy. They had been there for thousands of years, using places like Beaubears Island as a natural gathering spot for trade and their own musical tradition called Weltak, which means it sounds good or having a good sound. It's all about finding the harmony in sound. And yeah, as I said, if I get any of these pronunciations wrong, please do correct me on it down in the comments. I'll absolutely remember it for next time. As I said, terrified of a slagging. But the collision really kicked off when the Acadians arrived under tragic circumstances in 1756. Fleeing the British expulsion, they set up the Camp of Hope on that same island. Even though they suffered terribly from starvation and disease that first winter, the survivors who stayed or returned brought these ancient French narrative ballads that eventually mixed into the local culture. Then you have the Scottish and Irish, who showed up for the timber boom. A Scottish entrepreneur named William Davidson got things moving in 1765, and soon waves of Scottish shipbuilders and Irish labourers, which we mentioned at the beginning of the video, essentially all became the backbone of the logging industry. Now, because these men were isolated deep in the forest for months with no radio or TV, you had Mi'kmaq, Acadian, Scottish and Irish guys all sitting around the same bunkhouse fire, sharing their songs. And this created a unique blend where the Irish provided the come-all-ye ballad structure that became the standard for local songwriting. The Scottish influenced a unique fiddle style, especially in the east. The Acadians in the west added a faster syncopated rhythm using accordions and unique bowing techniques. And the Mi'kmaq kept their traditional chants, but also adapted those European fiddle styles into their own synthesis. The result is this very specific Miramichi style that's traditionally a cappella and focuses on objective storytelling, where the singer stays detached and lets the narrative do the work.
Some of those boys were willing, while others they hid from sight. For the breakage jam on Sunday, they did not think it was right.
It feels more strongly linked to Shan Nos, or the old way of singing, rather than purely dancing like I found it was in Newfoundland with the kitchen parties. And now that brings us on to Lord Beaverbrook. It's a great name, by the way. He's a very important character here. He had actually spent his youth in Newcastle in New Brunswick. By 1947, he saw that the old lumber camps were fading and the new world of mass media was about to bury the folk songs of his childhood for good. But first of all, picture this now. Just to give you an idea of just how much Beaverbrook loved the songs from the Miramichi. We're in the thick of World War II. Lord Beaverbrook is sitting in Winston Churchill's war cabinet, representing Britain at these incredibly high-stakes Allied conferences. He's sent over to the Kremlin to negotiate supplies with Stalin himself. It's a late one, full of heavy geopolitical bargaining, and to break the ice and build a bit of rapport, maybe just to take the edge off the diplomatic tension, Beaverbrook reaches back into his New Brunswick roots. He decides he's going to teach Joseph Stalin and Winston Churchill the Jones Boys. And this was a bit of a laugh, really. A 19th century satirical ballad about the antics of a family of Miramichi timber merchants. It's an absolute surreal image, isn't it? A British peer, a Soviet dictator, sitting around the Kremlin, singing a song from a Canadian lumber camp. Beaverbrook loved that tune so much, it actually became a permanent part of the local landscape. Even today, the melody of the Jones Boys is played every hour by the chimes at the University of New Brunswick campus in Fredericton. It's wild to think that a tune born in those isolated winter camps ended up in the halls of World War II diplomacy. But anyway, despite him trying to pass on the song tradition to Stalin, he felt the music of his childhood was dying out. So he got in touch with a childhood friend of his, Louise Manny, who was the town librarian at the time. He sent her this massively expensive, high-fidelity disc recording machine all the way over from England with one job: get out there and rescue the songs off the river before they vanished. The funny thing is here as well, Louise didn't have any formal music training at all, but she took that big portable recorder and started wandering the river valley, finding these quiet, self-conscious woodsmen and fishermen and convincing them to sing into the mic. She even got the housewives involved as well. Because of that gear that Beaverbrook sent, she managed to preserve around 125 unique ballads and songs that would have been lost to time otherwise. Fair play to her, honestly. She even started the Miramichi Folksong Festival in 1958, which is actually the oldest folk festival in Canada, just to give those traditional voices a stage. Louise was a bit of a purist in the early days though. She was dead set on protecting that organic sound of the river, so she actually put a strict ban on all musical instruments inside the venue. Every single tune had to be sung a cappella, just like the lads did in the lumber camps. She didn't want the old ways getting polluted by any of those modern commercial sounds. The festival turned into a stage for some proper local legends. Real human archives who carried the whole history of the place in their heads, like Alan Kelly, a bilingual singer who was a permanent fixture there until he finally passed away in 2008 at the ripe old age of 105. The Esty brothers, famous for their logging songs, they'd usually finish up their sets by scaring the bejesus out of the crowd with local ghost stories. But once Louise Manny passed on, Susan Butler stepped up and ran the show for about 40 years. She's the one who really let the festival move with the times, while she kept those traditional a cappella roots at the core. She started letting in acoustic instrumentation and modern folk acts to help bring in a new crowd. Now it's like a living museum, honestly. You've got the Nelson Doyle dancers doing their traditional Irish step dancing, Acadian fiddlers like Ray Legier, and even global musicians who've only just arrived in the Miramichi. That old music collision from the logging camps is still happening today, just getting bigger and more interesting as it goes on. In fact, this year celebrates the 69th year of the Miramichi Folksong Festival, which is on between July 30th and August 3rd. If I could get my hands on some affordable plane tickets, I'd absolutely be on my way. But I think I set out an impossible task here reflecting back. But I am glad I did. To be honest, I feel I've only scratched the surface as well. The evolution of this music is a massive web, and it takes years for anyone to truly get their head around it. The impossible part was trying to look at it from a purely Irish point of view. No surprises there, sure. The channel name doesn't really do me any favours on this one. Maybe I'll have to change it down the line, I don't know, let me know. But look, I could have bowled ahead, stuck an Irish label on the Miramichi and called it a day. There were so many different crowds living there from all walks of life, and that variety is just what makes the music beautiful. Anyone from the region would be dead proud of it. When you look past the Miramichi to the broader New Brunswick, the history gets even deeper. That's definitely one for another video. But from my little experience of Maritime Canada so far, it's a place steeped in culture and it keeps throwing surprises my way.